Om Sthapakaya cha dharmasya sarvadharmaswarupini avatara varishtaya Ramakrishnaya te namah. We are continuing our discussion on this subject that, as you all know, is the nature of consciousness and its application in spiritual life. Now, today I'm going to take up a different topic related to this. It is based on some very important celebrated passages from maybe the most important and the largest original work on Vedanta. It is called Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. It actually is linked to Shukla Yajurveda, one of the subdivisions of Yajurvedic tradition, Yajnavalkya Maitreyi Samvada. It's been the dialogue between a husband and his wife. And now it is surprising, this is considered to be one of the most immortal passages, the entire Vedic literature. I mean, Vedas, if you have all the Vedas together, Rig Veda, Yajurveda, Samaveda, Atharvaveda, with Samhita, Brahmana, Aranyaka, Upanishad, 4 sections for each of the 4 Vedas. There is nothing which is more important than this particular Upanishad. And in this Upanishad, one of the most celebrated passages is, it's called, technically called Yajnavalkya Maitreyi Samvada. Yajnavalkya is the name of a great saint. He was also the greatest philosopher of his times, a most enlightened person. Something like the Socrates of ancient Greece. That's what he was. And his dialogue with his wife, a very simple dialogue. The story goes like this, and it is related to an ancient tradition in India. Whenever an enlightened householder reaches his maturity of age, accomplishments and wisdom, then he thinks, well, I have led a very fruitful life. I have provided for all my children, parents, wife, everything taken care of. Now, I would rather leave my home and live a contemplative life. This could happen either by husband living alone and staying in a forest hermitage, or sometimes, in many cases, husband and wife together leaving their homes and staying in a forest hermitage. It's an ancient tradition. Now, Yajnavalkya was already the most celebrated teacher and philosopher and saint of his times. He was running a large number of Vedic schools, and many of his own students had become well known. And he is also well known for another very important work, Yajnavalkya Smriti, which is actually the most important canonical tradition in Hindu law. It goes back to 4th millennium BC. So if you look at India's constitution today, which is linked to the old Hindu law, which is based on, in many cases, based on Yajnavalkya Smriti, this constitution that he wrote, especially with regard to proper division of property, rights of members of family, all these mobile properties, immobile properties. Immobile means horses, elephants, and things, ancient times, cows. Immobile means land and things like that. So that was the greatness of this man. Now, one day he told his wife, Maitreyi hovaja Yajnavalkya udyasan va are aham asmat sthanat asmi handate anaya katyayinyanda karavanidi. So I am going to divide my wealth, and I am going to hand over to you my wealth. So he told Maitreyi. Now that is a very simple thing. The text continues, I shall explain this. Saho vaja Maitreyi yat nu me iyam Bhago sarva prithvi vittena purnasya katham tena amrudasyam iti. Na iti hovaja Yajnavalkya. Yathaiva upakarnavadam jividam tathaiva te jividam syan amrudattu na tu na asha asti vittena iti. It's simple. So he told his wife, I'm going to hand over to you all my wealth. I mean, horses, cows, and things like land, etc. She asked the question, now what's the use of this wealth for me? She knew that Yajnavalkya was looking for something higher. He was giving away all these in his quest for something higher than what he is giving up. It's interesting. He was renouncing something, handing over to his wife, just for seeking something higher than what he was giving to his wife. So he was not very happy. So you are giving me something which you want to get rid of, and you are going for something. And what you are seeking is immortality. He was going away from the burden, from the obligations, from the responsibilities of running a household, taking care of children, taking care of the properties, all the burden, all the IRA taxes, all this burden. That's what he was trying to do. And he was going in search of something far higher than what all the cars and bank deposits, all those things. So I want that you are seeking, and I don't want what you are going away, what you are giving away. Give me what you are seeking, which is obviously much more precious. But you don't give up something unless what you are going to get, what you are seeking is much higher, much more precious than what you are renouncing. So I want that. So by implication, she says, well, you are looking for higher spiritual wisdom, which will liberate you, which will give you freedom from bondage, which will give you eternal happiness, which will give you a kind of immortality, which will give you a total spiritual bliss and enlightenment. So that's what you're seeking. So she corners him, well, am I going to become immortal? Am I going to get freedom from bondages by accepting all the wealth that you are going to give me? Yajnavalkya was an honest man. He said, actually, I thought he was very happy because she must have rejoiced when he found out that his own wife was as great, as enlightened as he himself. She was also seeking higher spiritual freedom that he was seeking by giving away all this. So he said, no, na iti ha uvacha Yajnavalkya. Na iti ha uvacha. Ha is an ancient way of terming, ancient times. He said, no, you are not going to get immortality. You are not going to get freedom from bondage. You are not going to get freedom from miseries, this eternal, this cycle of being born, then living, suffering, enjoying, getting old, dying, again reborn, and continuing this game. So, you are not going to get freedom from this, somebody called samsara in Buddhist tradition, by getting this wealth. But then what will get you from wealth? From wealth you may get whatever wealth can buy. Wealth you can buy cars, jet planes, that's all we can buy, nothing more. So, yathaiva upakarnavadam jividam tathaiva te jividam syat. Whatever tools of comforts you can buy, you can procure with wealth, that you can get, not immortality. Immortality is not something that you can buy in the market with your money. Now, this again continues. Then Maitreyi, Saha Uvacha Maitreyi, Yena aham na amrudasyam kimaham tena kuryam yadeva bhagavan veda tadeva me bruhi. So, what helps you, what you think is going to help you to get this eternal spiritual wisdom? that you teach me. What's the use of all this wealth, which even according to you cannot get me immortality? Now here we need some explanation. What is the meaning of immortality here? Immortality means eternal freedom from bondage, eternal happiness in the highest sense, happiness which is not just absence of unhappiness, happiness, contentment, inner fulfillment. This is the meaning of immortality. Now, how do we become immortal? We certainly don't become immortal at the physical level. Every human being has to die. The 5 elements, we have to go back to their subtle form. From earth we came, and to earth we have to go back. There's no doubt. Then what's the meaning of immortality? When we realize that we are not these 5 elements which come to be born as a human being, which live maybe for 100 years, and will go back to the 5 elements, that's not our true nature. That's not our true identity. That's not what we actually are. What we are, something much higher. So long as we identify ourselves with this body-mind complex, death is always waiting at the door. It may be a day or a day after. So, she said, I do not want what you yourself don't want. Rather, I would prefer to get what you yourself are seeking by giving away all these material things which, according to you, cannot give us immortality. So, immortality means a state of spiritual evolution when we can truly experience the fact, the spiritual truth, that we are not just this body-mind complex mechanisms which are mortal, which are perishable. Rather, there is something behind and beyond this body-mind complex. That is Atman, we call it consciousness sometimes, Chit. And that Chit is our true nature. So when we realize this, we are not running away from death. We are not trying to defeat death at the physical level. Rather, we realize the fact death is only a comma, not a full stop in our journey towards immortality, towards consciousness. So death is not a full stop. Death is only a comma or a semicolon. So when we realize this, then whether we die or not, we are fully convinced that our true nature is immortal. Now there is a practical application in this subject. That's what I'm coming to. In our own daily life, when we face problems, I mentioned this yesterday, we mostly lose heart. We are devastated, we get shocked, because we think that even a small little problem, a challenge to the body, to the comforts of the body, that is the end of everything. Because we think we are nothing other than this body. But if we can identify ourselves with the immortal reality, that is Atman within the body, which is beyond the body, distinct from the body, which never dies because it's never born. It is beyond all changes. It is without any change. It remains the same. It exists in the past, present, and future without any change. Once we realize this, the realization is the meaning of becoming immortal. That's the meaning of attaining immortality. So it is not immortality at a physical level, which it is impossible. Now, one may ask this question, what's the nature of this bondage? It is very simple. Now, there are 3 categories of people, if you look at humanity in general. Those who have everything, trillions of dollars, very big job, all that they can aspire for, highly accomplished, lot of bank balance, but then they are also bound, they are also miserable, because those who have all these things, they are living under the perpetual fear of losing something of this. A billionaire will be terrified at the prospect of losing a few millions of dollars. A millionaire will be terrified at the prospect of losing a few tens of thousands of dollars. So, anyone who has a so-called happiness because of wealth, because of all the worldly achievements, they have happiness, but that happiness, as I mentioned yesterday, is only a temporary absence of unhappiness. Because every time a rich man gets up in the morning, he looks at the stock market, the condition, the fluctuation of stock markets, the slightest fluctuation, his heartbeat will go up, he will suffer. So he's always living in a state of perpetual misery. It is not a state of freedom. It is a state of perpetual bondage. So the so-called happy person is miserable, really speaking, because he is afraid of one day losing his wealth. A healthy person also may take extreme care, will be shocked when he gets a report from the doctor there is some minor health problems. That also will certainly make him miserable. So at the empirical level, there is no such thing as freedom from misery. There is no real freedom. There is always bondage. This is the central message. Then the opposite picture, let us see. There are those who have nothing, no money, no job, no wealth, nothing. People who have nothing. They are also, obviously, they are also not living very happy life. But then the point is, their unhappiness is also temporary. Because they are always dreaming, one day I will get a good job, one day I will be able to make a lot of money, one day I will become a rich person. According to some schools of psychology, no human being can live in this world unless he can dream of some happier future. We are able to live in this world because somehow at some corner of our heart we have this utopian feeling that one day I will also become a rich man, one day I will also become a happy person, one day I will also get many things which I don't have right now. So their state of unhappiness of a poor person who has no money, no wealth, no job, that unhappiness is also temporary because he's thinking of a future when he will be very happy. And a happy person who has got all the wealth in this world is also living under the constant fear of losing all these. One day there could be a war, there could be an invasion, there could be a big pandemic, industries may collapse, banks will collapse, we lose all the money. So this fear is always there. So everything in this world has got two sides. Those who have everything, they are afraid of losing some or all of that. And those who have nothing, they are naturally unhappy. But then the point is, they also dream of a distant future when they will become happy. But their happiness again is not going to remain permanent. It also will suddenly become unhappiness after some time. Now, there is a third category of people, third category. Now, for them, they are neither aspiring for something and they are neither happy nor unhappy. They are contented. Contentment is neither happiness, obviously not unhappiness. Contentment is a state when you are actually in a way contented with what you have and indifferent towards what you don't have. So we are happy with what we have And we are not unhappy because we don't have certain things. So we are indifferent towards what we don't have, and we are contented with what we already have. That's the third state. That is state of freedom. So at that stage, we are totally free. So the only state of freedom, true freedom, is the only state where we are totally free from all bondages is this. That is, we are happy with what we have. That means we are contented. But we are not unhappy with what we don't have. As I mentioned earlier, the first case, the rich man is very happy because he has so much of money. He is the president of a big company. He has a lot of followers. He is highly accomplished. But then every day he is fearing, I may lose some of this. If you look India, Americans' election campaign, they are also worried. An average person looking for a small little job, he is unhappy. The richest man in the world trying to be the president of the biggest company in the world, he is also unhappy because he is not sure he will get that job. He has trillions of dollars, and this man doesn't have $100. Both belong to the same category because they are unhappy. In the sense, the rich man is happy, but is afraid of losing this happiness one day. He has everything, but one day he may lose. So that makes him unhappy. And the unhappy man also is unhappy because he doesn't have anything. But those who are totally contented are those who have realized their immortal nature. That is, as a physical body-mind complex, I may lose my money and wealth. But the real I am consciousness, I am Atman. I am not going to lose anything. So he is happy with what he has. At the same time, he is not unhappy because he doesn't have certain things. And that state is the real state of freedom. That goes beyond happiness and unhappiness equation. Because he identifies himself as Atman. This is the freedom that Maitreyi was seeking. She could not articulate it. In fact, in the subsequent passages, in the second chapter, this again and again repeated. Those who are interested, you can look at Yajnavalkya Maitreyi Samvada. It comes in the second chapter, the fourth section called Brahmanam. That is Brahmana means a section in the Upanishads. It's a very long passage, and the same conversation is repeated in the fourth chapter also, with slight modifications. But it's one of the great passages. That means Maitreyi, housewife, maybe the conversation must have taken place in the kitchen with his husband. She is actually interpreting the greatest spiritual truth. She was offered all the wealth, all the properties, and her husband was going away in search of something after giving up all this. So she said, no, I don't want what you don't want. I want what you are actually looking for, what you are actually seeking. That's what I want. Because that's what's going to make me immortal. So immortality should not be misunderstood. Because immortality here means our identification with our true nature, which is immortal, which is not the body-mind complex, which obviously is not immortal. So this state of total contentment, that means yes, something, but not everything, is contented with what he has, but is indifferent with regard to what he doesn't have. So that state is the real state of total freedom from bondage. Now, how does one begin this journey? For that, we have to go to another section. It is mentioned in the Yoga Sutra. In the Yoga Sutra, there is a well-known sutra, Parinama Tapa Samskara Dukkhehi Guna Vritti Virodhacha Dukkhameva Sarvam Vivekinaha. This is a related passage. So you can see all the way from Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, which belongs to 6th millennium BC, to Yoga Sutras, which belong to 9th century BC. all interconnected. So, and you can see the example of this, the truth of this reality in the life of Buddha. Now, it's a very interesting. The word dukkham is used here. What is the meaning of dukkham? If you look at the dictionary, Monia Williams or Apte, any Sanskrit dictionary, you find sorrow, grief, all this I mentioned. But really, dukkham is not sorrow. To give you an example, when Buddha, I give the example of Buddha because the most celebrated example of what I'm discussing now is Buddha. He was born as a prince and he lived up to his 28th year in all imaginable kinds of luxury, comforts, everything. In fact, to such an extent that he was not allowed to see anything about the dark side of human existence. With the result that when he was 28 years old, he was being taken around the streets of Lumbini, the town in Nepal where he was born. And it so happened that he happened to see an old man sitting in the street corner, a dead body being taken to cremation ground, and a sick man sitting. So old man, sick man, dead body. Death, sickness, old age. Dark sides of human existence. He had never even heard of such a thing. Because there was a prophecy, a prediction when he was born, an astrologer predicted that this man will become an emperor of mendicants, of wandering monks, an emperor of mendicants, or an emperor in the ordinary imperial sense. He became a big, powerful king in that sense. So the king wanted to make sure that he's not going to become a mendicant, a man of renunciation, which he eventually became. So he was kept in a state of luxury. He was not allowed to come out and see the streets and see the life in the streets. So it so happened his charioteer took him for a ride in a chariot, and he saw these three visions of the dark side of human life: death, old age, and sickness. And then he saw the face of a monk. There was no misery on the face, in the expression of the person, because he had seen misery and happiness and bondage in the other three visions: old age, death, and sickness. But here there was nothing. So he wanted to be like him, like this monk. And that night he left his home, walked about 1,200 miles to Bodh Gaya and sat under a tree with a strong determination. Ihasane sushudu me shariram tugastimamsam chavilayam siyatu aprapisiddhim bhujanma durlabham naivasanat kayamatas chalishide. I'm going to sit under this tree, I'm going to meditate, I'm going to find out the real truth. I'm going to get enlightenment. Now the question arises. Buddha's condition as he was walking 1,200 miles from Lumbini to Bodh Gaya as a young prince who had left his palace and confessed everything. It was a state of parinama dukkha. Dukkha, normally dukkha in the ordinary Sanskrit lexicon, it means grief or sorrow. He was not sorrowful. He was not crying and weeping. See, you may feel a lot of sympathy for people when there is a natural calamity, a big tsunami happening somewhere. You don't sit in your room and crying and weep unless you want to be certified. You may draw a check and you may send a charity, a help to those people. You feel sorrowful, but you don't go and cry and weeping. You don't do that. Again, Buddha's state of mind was that he had realized the incompleteness, the imperfection, the impermanence in the language of Buddhist philosophy of everything in this world. So he wanted to find out the real, the immortal, the permanent, the eternal. For that he came to Bodh Gaya, sat under the tree. Now this is called parinama dukkha. Now what does it mean? It helps you to look for some higher value. In Vedantic tradition, there are 4 fundamental values: dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. These are the 4 values that guide, that regulate human existence. It's a very complete philosophy of life. Nothing is left out. Even if you are struggling with a strong ambition, greed and desire to make a lot of money and wealth and get the highest job in this country, still you are included in the scheme of human life. On the other hand, if you are like a Buddha, renouncing everything, going to a forest, then also your life plan is included in this scheme of life. Dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. Dharma is a regulating principle, a guiding principle. Artha and kama. Artha means what we are trying to accomplish, our desire. And kama means desire, what we want to accomplish. Artha means the means, the instruments, money, wealth, all this that we need to accomplish our desired goal. So kama means desire, our goal in our mind, what we want to get in the highest job, plenty of money. These are different examples of kama. Artha means you work hard, get a high grade in the university, go for a job, and have good connections. These are the means for you to achieve your desired goals. Now, this philosophy tells us only one simple truth. You can work hard and can have all that you want, all the wealth if you want to become the most powerful, the highest official in this world, you can have. You want to make money, you can have. But you should not deviate from the principles of dharma. This is a simple thing. Hinduism and Vedanta do not decry or they don't criticize human aspirations. One can have any kind of aspiration. This is a wrong philosophy. Actually, it is coming from Jainism. Something interesting, I am not criticizing Gandhiji. Gandhiji was against industrialization. Gandhi was against introducing technology and industrial methods of production and distribution into agriculture. But if India had followed Gandhism, people would be still starving. India became a surplus state in food grain production because there was this food grain revolution called Green Revolution. India became surplus state in milk production with the White Revolution. So, this is a real picture of Vedanta and Hinduism. An householder who neglects his duty to produce wealth through proper means without deviating from the path of dharma, he is an adharmi, he is practicing adharma, an householder. A sannyasi is trying to accomplish wealth, he is adharma. But an householder has a sacred duty to make use of everything in this world for accomplishing great things for the benefit of society, nation, family, people around, through proper means, dharma. So our pursuit of artha and kama, a pursuit of worldly desires, accomplishments, and the means that we use to accomplish those goals should not violate the principles of dharma. So long as they do not violate the principles of dharma, it is perfectly okay. What happens next? That's our present subject for the retreat. Moksha. And moksha is linked to this consciousness idea. If any individual who practices his normal, who works for his aspirations, worldly aspirations, high grade in the university, well-paid job, lot of money, so that he can help his relatives, his children, can give them good education. Such a person, but he does all this without deviating from the principles of dharma, the regulating principle. What happens to such a person? One day he will realize, it's enough. I don't want any more wealth and money. I want something higher. It's natural. But then this happens only if you follow the path of dharma. If we don't follow the path of dharma, we'll be imprisoned. We'll be prisoners of artha and kama. If we do not generate wealth with dharmic principles, if we generate wealth deviating from the principles of dharma, what happens is we will become prisoners. We'll be imprisoned by our own desires. We'll be the prisoners of our own wealth. Our own accomplishments become our tormentors. On the other hand, if we stick to the principles of dharma, then what happens is there's a natural graduation, the higher evolution, an ascent that takes place. One day, you may have all the money, wealth, everything, but I don't care. You go to the Berkeley University and you start reading a book. It may be Sermon on the Mount, it may be Bhagavad Gita, it may be Sindhavesta, it may be Dhammapada, anything. It may be Torah, Talmud. You may just take up any book that tells you about a higher life, some transcendental value, and that is called moksha in Hindu tradition. So dharma, artha, kama and moksha. People sometimes think moksha means going away from this world, going to a forest, long beard and matted hair, and nothing of the kind. Moksha is a natural, inevitable, inescapable evolution that happens to every human being. You may have read Walden. I had to study Walden as a student of literature, the American literature. If you read Walden, what are you finding there? A man who moves from place to place. If you offer him $1 million, he will throw away. He would rather say, I will want to move and I would see these ponds and rivers and trees and you want to look at the sky. That's what I want to do. So an example, this search and quest for moksha, the transcendental value, going beyond the worldly accomplishments, it happened to many great men and women in all traditions. Only in Indian tradition, it is a well-articulated, well-organized mechanism, dharma, artha, kama and moksha. It is applicable to a retired person. It is also applicable to a student going to primary school. He should work hard, get the highest grade so that he can get a very good job. But he should not copy, he should not steal from his neighbors, his friends' answer books or nothing of the kind. He should not bribe the institution. If he works hard, he should aspire to become the highest, the richest, the most, nothing wrong in it. But then, see, here is the problem. One should not deviate from the principles of dharma. And when you stick to these principles of dharma, then you find secular and spiritual, worldly and spiritual. All these, they are not contrasting styles of life, they are not contrasting ways of life, they are harmonized without any friction. This is the genius of this scheme of life, dharma, artha, kama and moksha. So what happened to Buddha was a noble person, and when he saw, and he was a rich person, he's a prince, when he saw such a thing as the misery of getting old, sick and being dead, then suddenly he wanted to look for something higher. But this can happen only to some noble souls. Why? Because this can happen only to people who have followed the principles of dharma. So that way, surprisingly, one of the statements in Vyasa's commentary on the same sutra, it comes in the Sadhanapada 15th sutra. It says, Parinama dukkhata nama pratikula sukhavastayam api yoginam eva krishnadi. It's Vyasa's commentary. What it means is, this search, quest for something higher, something transcendental, means the identity with consciousness. This happens only to a small number of people. Who are they? They should have followed the path of dharma. So, Let's say Pratikulavasthayam, that means normally Buddha did not have any reason to run away from his palace. He was a normal person like Buddha should have been very, very happy. There was absolutely no reason for him to go away. But then he was such a noble person because the reality, the dark reality of life, that is sickness and old age, and death, of course, it shocked him. It forced him, compelled him to look for something transcendental. And that happens because he was living a life based on dharma. So that's why we find people who have led somewhat disciplined life, have done a lot of good things in their life. At one stage, at some time in the future, what happens? It's enough. They may not have gone to any place of worship. They may not have read any spiritual book or religious book, but they have led disciplined life. They didn't take bribe. They did their duty, and they paid the taxes. They were law-abiding citizens. They did what they were paid for. Such people, at some stage, what happens? But this is enough. Let me see there is something higher than this. So what happens is they look for some higher value. As I mentioned, they will go to the university, read a book, or they may go and attend a lecture. That's how it begins, actually. Or they may listen to a conversation on some higher spiritual life, not on a subject that helps you to get a few more extra dollars, but rather a subject that has nothing to do with worldly accomplishments. So we naturally develop a desire, a strong desire to listen to be connected to some conversation, some book, some ideas that talks about some higher transcendental value. That is called moksha. So, and this is inevitable. You cannot escape from this. If we have led a dharmic life, it is impossible for us to get stuck at the level of dharma, artha and kama. Impossible. I can give many examples. Even I mentioned this earlier, many big captains of industry, billionaires who make a lot of money, maybe not always through proper means, but certainly following some principles in their own way, at some stage they think, well, it's not enough. Let me practice some charity. They feel a great desire. They can't help doing that because if they don't practice the charity, they cannot get sleep. So they start a trust. So they go to backward regions of Africa and some other continent. They start spreading education. They start, or even conservation of energy. All this working for against this pollution of against air pollution, water pollution. They want to work for the conservation of energy. They want to work for the conservation of the ecosystem. Or they want to spend money for spreading vaccination, developing vaccines and so on. Why? Because they have made so much of money, so that doesn't give them what we call contentment. That gave them happiness for some time, but then it goes away. Now they want to do something. So it's a natural urge, a natural spontaneous urge on the part of every human being for getting out of this prison house of dharma, artha and kama. Means you are working for fulfilling your desires, accomplishing your goals, and you have all the means at your disposal. Of course, you have followed some dharmic principles, and then at some stage, what is beyond all this? You are no more prisoners of artha and kama. Then what happens? You want to liberate yourself from this prison and you want to look for some higher transcendental value. This is moksha. That is what was happening to Maitreyi. So remember, Maitreyi was a noble lady. She was as great as her husband. And she found out that her husband was giving away all the wealth. So he must be looking for something higher. So she wanted that, the more precious thing. Not what her husband was getting rid of. So she said, I want that. Because that gives me a higher sense of meaning of life. So give me immortality. So immortality not a physical level. Immortality means getting out of this prison house of desires, and the means for accomplishing those desires, that is the prison house. You can find this even in some other Upanishads, like Kathopanishad. I don't have much time, but within 5 minutes I should finish this. In the Kathopanishad, there is a very interesting story. A small little boy, his name is Nachiketa. His father was a rich man, a very charitable person, and also wanted to be known as a big charitable person. Lot of the typical proud philanthropist. So one day he was performing a big ritual. As a part of the ritual, he had to give away whatever wealth he produced. And the wealth in those days meant cows, horses, and so on. But then this man was a tricky person. So he was trying to give away all the old cows which won't give milk, which won't eat grass. So Pitodaga Jagdadruna Dugdadoka Nirindriyaga. Very interesting descriptions, adjectives. Cows which won't drink water, which won't eat grass, which won't give milk. And occasionally maybe a few kicks also. That's what he was trying to give away, charity. Now his little son, watching all this, saw through this trick, went and told him, well, the name of the ritual in ancient times is called Sarvasva Danam. Sarvasva means all the wealth that you possess. So one interpretation could be that all the material wealth that you possess. Another one can be the most precious wealth that you possess. And this man had only one son, Nachiketa. So the most precious wealth of an householder who has only one son in ancient times is the only son. So the little boy went and asked him, to whom are you going to give me? So, Ditiyam Tridiyam Sahovaja Murtivetvam Didamidi. The father told him, I'm going to give you to the Lord of Death. So what it means is, twice, 3 times the boy went and asked this man, his father, who was engaged in performing these rituals. And he said, I'm going to give you to the Lord of Death. He was a bit annoyed. And the little boy wanted to make this, his father's promise, father's word should come true. Otherwise, father will be telling a lie. So he starts a journey to the Lord, to the house, Lord of Death. It's a mythological story. The greatness of this spiritual literature is that there are some stories which may look very mythological, but when the authors themselves proclaim that it is meant to expound and explain one deep spiritual truth. That's why this story is put in this way. It comes in Mahabharata, Taittiriya Brahma, Aranyaka. It actually comes in the Krishna Yajurveda, Kathopanishad. So the point is, he went to the Lord of Death. He was not there. He came only after 3 days. So Lord of Death, called Yama, he was very, very sorry that a young little boy was waiting without taking food, without eating food. For 3 days he was waiting. So he said, I shall give you 3 boons as a compensation for waiting 3 days for meeting me. And I'm sorry that you remained there without eating food. And the first boon is, Nachiketa asked for the first boon. When I go back to my home, my father should not be angry with me. Little boy of 5 years. That's what he wanted. Oh, Yama said, okay, go ahead. Your father will not be angry. Shanda Sankalpa Sumana Yadasya Vidamanyu Gutumum Abhimutyu to Prasistam Abhivade Pratida Edatrayanam Prathamam Varam Pranidhi. The first boon. The second boon was something different. So he knew that because of the grace, the blessings of this great celestial being, Yama, his material life will be quite happy. The second boon he wanted, what about life after death? So I want to live permanently in heaven. The second boon. Sattum Agyam Soghivam Deshimrityu Prabruhitam Sadadanaya Mahyam Sorgaloka Amrutam Bhajanda Edat Ditiyena Vare Vrinena. The second boon was Edat Ditiyena Vare Vrinena. Means the second boon is you should teach me a ritual, Nachiketa ritual, which will guarantee, which will help me to go to heaven after death. Leave that behind. In fact, that's not our subject. Our subject is the third boon. That's what we are coming to. Now, Nachiketa asked for the third boon. That's the subject of our retreat. Nachiketa asked this question. And he asked for this third boon. But Yama asked, already you asked for the third boon. You see, Em prede vijigitsa manushi asti tigi nayamasti dichaige edad vidya manusishtastvayaham varana mesha varastratiyaka. This is simple. It means some people say that when you die, that's the end of everything. And some people say no, something is left out. When the body is pushed through the tube, that's not the end of the journey. It is not a full stop, it is only a coma. Again the journey continues. Your life continues with a different body, in a different place, with a different family, but you'll be born again. Some people say, no. When the body is pushed through the crematorium tube, that's the end of the journey, the end of the story. What's the real truth behind? This is the third book. Now remember, this is a subject that you find in the teaching in the ancient pre-Augustinian Greek philosophy. Sophocles, Heraclitus, and of course in Plato, Aristotle, Philo, Porphyry, Neoplatonism, everywhere you find this quest for, well, what happens, what's our true nature? What happens after death? In Indian philosophy, in Buddhism, in Jainism, in all these traditions, it has been discussed in thousands of scriptures for thousands of years. Now, Yama's answer to this question is actually the topic of our retreat. Yama tells Nachiketa, well, this body and this mind with which we have seen all these things, these senses, we gather a lot of memories and experiences and tendencies, samskaras, impressions and memories. We accumulate using all these senses of perception, eyes, ears, sense of touch, sense of smell, everything we use in this life. But we deposit all this somewhere, internal organs, antakarana. And then when we are dead, we are born again with another body. But these impressions that we have gathered with our eyes and ears and sense of smell, sense of touch, all these are born again. We are born with a baggage, samskaras. This continues. This continues because we identify ourselves with this body-mind complex. The moment we realize the supreme truth that we are consciousness, we are Atman, and that Atman is immortal. This body is only vehicle and instrument for the Atman to manifest. The moment we realize this transmigratory cycle comes to an end. So Yama explains this. Anoraniyan makhuto makhiyan atmasijindo nikhidam guhayam tamakradu pasyadi vita shokah dhadu prasadat mahimanam atmana. He says that Atman is inexplicable, indescribable, it's our true nature. So in language, there is a problem. You have to use language, even to make clear that it's beyond language. For that you need language. So Yama says, it is smaller than the smallest. It is larger than the largest. It is present in everyone and in everything as the indweller. How do we realize this? By making our mind clean, by making our senses clean, by doing karma yoga, by doing good actions, we generate spiritual wealth. And what happens is, when our mind is clean and clear, then the Atman reflects in all its effulgence. When you take a piece of cloth and remove the dust of the mirror, then what happens? The reflection becomes crystal clear in its full effulgence. So, whether these retreat programs, whether prayer and meditation, all these are different methods of taking a piece of cloth and wiping off the dust from the mirror. And the most elementary starting point is what I mentioned at the beginning of this retreat, Kriya Yoga, Karma Yoga. Doing something noble and good. So, this realization is a distant goal, but we can start right now and today, because it can start anywhere. The kindergarten may be next to our home, but university may be 10,000 miles away. But if you do well in the kindergarten, then you do well in primary school, and eventually we may do very well in the university also. But for that, we should do very well in the kindergarten. Without that, we won't be able to do well in the university. So Kriya Yoga is a kindergarten. So that's a real practical application of this philosophy of Atman. That is the philosophy of consciousness. Now we can have interaction. You are most welcome.
Can I go, Swami?
Yeah, please.
I have multiple questions.
Yeah. If you ask one question, then after, because I have to write down all your questions one after another. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So the first question seems to be just basically an observation.
Yeah.
From little of what I know of Upanishads, it looks like they're all dialogues. So Nachiketa, Yama, and Janaka, Ashtavakra, and Yajnavalkya and Maitreya. Was it to make it interesting, or rather than a monologue, was it done?
It is actually, it says something about the social background of those times. In Vedic schools, in the assemblies of kings, it was a normal tradition. It was a tradition to have these dialogues. Even Vedic schools also, after teaching a class, there will be dialogues involving students, and also involving students and teachers. And it was very common practice in the royal assemblies. Philosophers will be invited, there will be interactions among them. Yeah.
So
it's called Parishad. The assemblies were called Parishad. That's real meaning. Yeah.
And the next question is, actually, the identity, right? When we take off, by our, take it off from our body-mind complex and then identify with something else higher. And in the process, are we, what is the role of humanity? In the sense, there is a baby, the beautiful smile, the innocence, so the beauty. And at the same token, right, the baby is sick, so that Vedana, or what the misery that, one would eventually feel.
Yeah.
It's basically two sides of the same coin. How do we, what is that role, do we participate in that process, or?
Well, I tell you, no. Anyone who takes an active interest in these higher spiritual ideas will automatically become a good human being. So you don't have to make a plan how Vedanta is going to train me to act properly in a situation when I see a baby or somebody cry. If we take an active intellectual interest, at least in all these higher philosophies, they will color, they will influence our mind, our attitudes, the way we interact. I can give you an example. Suppose you are reading some undesirable kind of nasty thriller book or detective novel or something, At that time, if somebody comes, if somebody knocks at the door, UPS man or maybe Amazon, you may, all right, you leave it there. You may shout at him because you want to read it. You don't want him to interfere. But suppose you are reading Bhagavad Gita. Then if that person comes, you will say, oh, please, thank you, please leave it. I will take that. So you can imagine how even intellectual interest in higher philosophy will inevitably train our mind to act and behave, interact in the appropriate manner on the right occasions. Okay, thank you. Next question. Just one more, then we will do other people. Yeah.
This is about.
Okay, thank you. So any more, please. Yeah, thank you for the question. Wonderful questions. Yeah.
Thank you, Swami. What's Kriya Yoga?
Oh, Kriya Yoga. I was using Kriya Yoga the way it is explained in the Yoga Sutra. So first sutra of Sadhana Pada. Tapaswadhyaya Ishvara Pranidhanani Kriya Yoga. This is the sutra. What it means is Tapa, Swadhyaya and Ishvara Pranidhana. Tapa means with your mind and senses completely focusing on doing whatever you are doing with full concentration, with a sense of sanctity and sacredness. That is Tapa. And Swadhyaya means reading, thinking, repeating things which will be good food to our mind. When we repeat good words, whether it could be devotional poems, hymns or mantras, or even if you're reading elevating literature, it be like Swadhyaya, means giving good food to the mind. Ishvara Pranidhana means resigning to God's will. But according to the commentators like Vachaspati and other yoga commentators, the most important element of this Kriya Yoga is Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga here means whatever we do in our everyday life, not only religious practices, but even our everyday secular activities, like going to university, working in your home, you could be working in a computer, whatever may be our profession or job. Do that with full concentration, with a sense of sanctity and sacredness, but without any selfish motive. This again is a matter of evolution. At the beginning, we may not be able to practice unselfishness when we do our work, our official work. We want salary, we want promotion, that's true. But gradually you find, even when you are working very efficiently, you are working very hard, still you will be able to detach your mind from any selfish motives. So this automatically happens. This is the crucial, the central theme of Kriya Yoga as interpreted by commentators. First sutra of Sadhana Pada. Tapa, Swadhyaya, Ishvara Pranidhanani Kriya Yoga. This is the meaning of Kriya Yoga. Okay, thank you. Yeah.
You explained the Purusharthas, Dharmartha, Kama, Moksha, and you touched upon the Grihastha ashrama of Maitreya and Yajnavalkya.
Yeah.
What is the role of the Varnashramas in our evolution?
Now, Varnashrama, historically, it was based on the characteristics and temperaments of different people in different levels of society. Those who were of a contemplative nature, those who were naturally interested in meditative practices, they were called Brahmins. In the same family, if that person's younger brother or elder brother joins the military or any such activities, used to be called Kshatriyas. And another relative or somebody becomes a businessman, he will be called the Vaishya. Another person, maybe he is not interested, he doesn't want to go to school, he would rather do some job or something, is called Shudra. So remember, these were all based on characteristics and temperaments. It's a nature's division of labor. It was a nature's division of labor. In course of time, in ancient societies, frequently this became a rigid institution. But that was what really happened in course of time. So Varnashrama Dharma. Dharma means every person. If you are a professor, you are a teacher, you have your Dharma. And you should give importance to that. It doesn't mean that you should not do anything else, but you will be judged on the basis of how well you do the duty that you are expected to do in society. That's an important thing. So Swadharma and Varnashrama Dharma were interested. Now remember, all these four values, Dharma, Artha, Kama and Moksha, they were equally applicable to every person. All these four values were equally applicable to every person. You can find in the Bay Area, you can find in anywhere you find. People who work very hard in their offices. Every week they go to temples, they participate in rituals, So when they're working in the computer, they are actually Shudras. When they go into the Brahmin, the same person. So these are different activities based on different temperaments and needs and occasions in society. This was its original nature. It's clear to you? Okay, yeah. Another thing I want to mention to you, the Dharma, Artha and Kama and Moksha, it is not limited to any particular society. The natural, inevitable evolution in human nature. Because every person will have his desires and he will go for procuring those means, so Kama and Artha. But then, one important point, one should not deviate from the principles of Dharma when you are in the pursuit of your goals. And then what happens, as a result of this, one day you will inevitably start thinking, well, what is beyond all this? That is a natural, unavoidable evolution that happens to everyone. Okay.
Swamiji, there is this saying that idle mind is devil's advocate.
Yeah.
So how to overcome that, and especially like when doing meditation, how to avoid negative thoughts?
Yeah. There are two ways. First, if negative thoughts become too strong, then don't meditate further because it will be harmful. Because it can create nervous problems. So it can agitate our emotional system. At that time, one should try to read some good books, some books related to spiritual life. Or if that's also is impossible because of any agitation, the mind or restlessness, one should do some creative work. This is an important thing to remember. So when negative thoughts become too unbearable, one should not force the mind to meditate. Because that's why I can tell you, those who really meditate, a calm and serene expression will naturally come to that person. But if you find a person who claims he is meditating a lot, but is restless and agitated, that means he's fighting with his own mind when he's trying to meditate. You sit in a seat and your mind doesn't allow you. You tell your mind, no, I shall meditate. I won't care for you. Do whatever you want. So if you look at the person's face, he will be fighting with somebody. Grim expression, hostile expression you find. And that expression later becomes well marked on the facial expression of the person. This could happen. I don't mean to say a smiling person is spiritual. The diplomats and salesmen and airplane flight assistants are not necessarily spiritual. What I mean to say, just to give you an example, in a limited context only, this is what I'm saying just now is applicable. So one should not try to force one's mind to meditate beyond the limit. It is harmful. It can lead to delusions, especially delusions of grandeur can happen. So one should try to take the mind away to another level of spiritual life. Reading spiritual books, also a kind of spiritual activity. That's also spiritual activity. And also participating in some good activity. See, and that will help you to deposit a lot of good deposit in the mental system, depositing samskaras, good samskaras, healthy samskaras. mind becomes negative, mind agitates, mind goes about thinking about negative thoughts because of the unhappy, undesirable memories and samskaras already deposited in the mental system. They cannot be destroyed. Samskaras can never be destroyed because they are dominating now. So you should generate good samskaras. And when you have a surplus of good samskaras, then bad samskaras will become weaker and weaker. So negative thoughts will no more emerge. So doing something good, it is a tendency among many these days. I won't do any good work, I shall meditate. It is absolutely wrong and dangerous. There is also a kind of deception and hypocrisy behind. I won't care for any karma yoga or anything. I would rather meditate. And you look at the man, he is restless, he is agitated because he wants to meditate. If people don't know the meaning of meditation, and if you don't mind my telling you, many of these disciplines are being highly commercialized. And people, and unfortunately, you know what happens? When somebody teaches you something, and if you ask for to pay $100 per session, you think that there is something really wonderful. You go for that. But if Buddha himself comes and starts a meditation class without accepting fees, the hall will be empty. If Buddha and Christ come right now and gives an announcement in the social media, we are starting a meditation training program, but no fees, no registration, no RSVP, nobody will come. This is a problem. So it has something to do with modern trends. So that's why, at least in my own humble way, I'm trying to connect whatever I'm teaching with genuine source books. See, currency is valid only if it can buy you some gold. If the currency can buy only some charcoal, worthless trash, then that currency is useless. So the gold value, the scriptures have got gold value, ancient scriptures. Just like, for example, a work written by Einstein or Oppenheimer has gold value in physics. Similarly, the great ancient sages like Shankaracharya, Vyasa, or Yajnavalkya, they are like Einsteins of our ancient tradition. They never took money. So that's why you should go for gold value, not currency value. So now in modern times what happens? Everything should be sufficiently diluted, sufficiently commercialized, and then people go for that. I gave you yesterday the example I was giving this class for this Sunday class, Indian philosophy. Somebody raised this question. There is an institution, I don't know who they are charging $500 for raising a kundalini. You can just imagine to what laughable extent things can go. Anyway, that's not exactly the most pleasant subject right now for discussion. Okay, we can come to, okay, please continue. Yeah.
Pranam, Swami.
Yeah.
So I understand moksha is a goal.
Yeah.
I don't understand totally the interplay between the mind, the body, and moksha. Like, can you be in the body and achieve moksha? And can you stay there in moksha, or?
Yeah. So moksha means, moksha literally means liberation, the literal translation. What it means, liberation from our clinging to our own identity as this body-mind complex. I mean, we are liberating ourselves from this wrong notion that we are only this physical body-mind complex, nothing else. That wrong notion is gone. Liberation from the wrong notion. So what happens at that time? Well, it is difficult to explain what happens at that time, but I can give a hint. When you get any person, we get some unpleasant news or report from some source, healthcare provider, whoever may be, which is not very happy, and it makes us somewhat unhappy. In most circumstances, it has something to do with losing our health or money or whatever it is. And why do we become unhappy? Because money and wealth and health, all these are linked to our physical body-mind complex. We become unhappy because when we lose money, something precious is lost. When we become sick, something precious is lost. Some terrible tragedy takes place. But if we can remember in our heart, I am not just this body-mind complex. I am consciousness. I am Atman. The body-mind complex is part of the system. But my true nature is far higher, far more transcendental. If we can remind ourselves of this fact, still you may go to a doctor, you take all precaution, of course, you do a vaccination, everything, still this report will not have a shocking effect on us. We'll be able to take it in our stride. So, even a little intellectual idea, a small intellectual idea that we are not this body-mind complex, we are Atman. Even just an idea will have this effect of calming our mind, bringing tranquility in our mind. That's all liberation.
And then does moksha, if you reach moksha, is that equivalent to self-realization?
It is moksha is just word of self-realization. Self-realization is an attempt to define moksha in English.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then can somebody, arrive at moksha but then fall out of moksha? Or once you're in moksha, you're there forever? Or how does that?
It is eternal. Yeah, it is eternal. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see. I don't ever talk on. Thank you, Swami, for the lecture. Do you mind if I be a little mischievous? Play the devil's advocate? Is it okay if I play the devil's advocate? Can I be mischievous with my question?
Yeah. Yeah, please. Yeah.
Oh,
I couldn't explain. I couldn't clearly understand.
I'm sorry. I don't ever use
system.
microphones.
Yeah. Adverse, a different view.
Well,
please go ahead, please. Yeah.
I love this idea that we are eternal.
Yeah.
And we go round and round with our
true.
cycle of samskars until we get sick of it. And I love the philosophy. It fits all together, but why should I believe it? I hear it.
Believe, absolutely. Nobody, I tell you, in Hinduism and Vedanta, nobody asks you to believe in anything.
But I want to.
But you want to believe. That means you want to believe.
I want to be, I'm a scientist. I want to be totally convinced.
Okay.
And it all hangs together logically.
Okay, that's true. So, actually conviction takes place at the intellectual level. And this spiritual truth is not at the intellectual level. It is something one has to experience, really speaking. Suppose you pray, so that prayer gives you a sense of serenity and tranquility and peace. Another person also prays. I don't get anything out of it. You cannot transmit your experience to other person.
I still don't believe it because of that, though.
No
it's still
need to believe.
tethered to me as a human being.
Absolutely. Actually, I tell you, we need not believe at all. Absolutely. In the Vedanta, one of the central principles of Vedanta is belief is not enough. Belief is only the beginning. One should experience it. So, as you mentioned, there are many people who don't believe in it. Actually, Buddha also did not believe in Veda. He said, but he preached only Vedanta philosophy. There are many wonderful people in this world who don't believe in Vedanta, who don't believe in spirituality. They are wonderful people. Maybe one day they may believe. That's true.
So,
another important thing I tell you, I still want to quote Vivekananda's famous, very forceful statement. You live your life in such a way that God will accept you even if you don't accept Him. So this is an important thing. the very fact that you emphasize belief so much is because in Abrahamic tradition, belief is the beginning and the end of everything, except in mystical tradition. At the mystical level, they went beyond belief, they emphasize experience. That's why they became mystics. But in traditional religious, everywhere in Hinduism also, I believe in God, they may not have any experience. All traditions, belief is only beginning. But remember, belief is not absolutely necessary for one to live an ideal life. And when that person lives an ideal life, one day he will realize there is something beyond all this.
So, Swami, I've actually had some amazing experiences that most people don't. You know, the earth, reality is shattered for me on several occasions. So I've had these experiences, but I'm still a human being, and I can kid myself. I can kid myself. I can make myself believe that it means something more than just my mind.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you are right. You can just go ahead. You when you want to believe, you can believe. When you don't want to believe, you need not believe. But still, if a person lives a disciplined life in whatever way possible, that itself is enough for you to become a Vedantin. But to become a Vedantin, you do not have to believe even in God, but you have to live a godly life. That's a difference. Godliness and an anthropomorphic God, these are two different entities in Vedanta. That's why Swami Vivekananda said, our life should be left in such a way that God, if there is a God, He will accept you. And remember, God acceptance or non-acceptance is not at all a matter, nothing very important in our life. But remember, when we live in such a way, we will become spiritual. That's the important thing. So the idea of God also has to be again and again redefined. He is not somebody who is watching over you and judging your actions. Not absolutely, no. That divine principle is within you. You may not be aware of it now, but when we reach a higher level of evolution, we will become aware of this. It's a matter of inner experience. It's not a matter of belief. Belief is absolutely insignificant in Vedanta. In the sense, it is not paramount. It is experience. One can experience without being able to believe. So I can recommend one thing. You can read Swami Vivekananda's Jnana Yoga lectures.
I've read it many times. Swami, I've been doing this for decades now. I'm not a beginner.
Very good, absolutely good.
Every once in a while I come back and I go, wait a minute, I've heard this all from other human beings. We can all be kidding ourselves. Is there something that I can tether to?
Yeah.
Something other than my experience or other people's experience that I trust? Is there something else? And I'm just looking for that tiny little thing to hold on to.
Eventually you may reach there. Keep trying. Yeah. And you can keep attending our lectures. You can. And there are many people, right? There are many people like you, wonderful people who come, participate in our events, remember? So, absolutely wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for the great question. I think we have, right now we have come to the end of our time. Now we will have refreshments at 11:30, and after that from 12 to 1 p.m. meditation at the temple, and then dismiss. Thank you. I should thank all the more for those who ask questions like you. Wonderful. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.